Jamil, thank you for doing this. Great meeting you.
My pleasure. Likewise, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. So, Jamil, tell us about a little bit of your story for viewers and listeners.
I guess so. We'll start back to maybe high school. I started playing basketball, right? So I started taking it serious in grade 9. I hadn't played basketball really up until then. I'm a natural soccer player. I excelled really well in soccer, but something about basketball, and I think kind of having not being involved in it as a young kid and all the kind of hard work that I had to put into getting good was something that really attracted me to wanting to play. A lot of people told me, obviously, because of my height and everything else like that, basketball is not something that I should probably, put all my eggs in one basket for. But I like proving people wrong and showing myself personally that I can do something. So grade 9 was rough. I mean, trying to learn the game, even though I was pretty athletic, I was fast and all that other stuff. But understanding the game is something that you need to do, over time, right? It's like anything else. So I pretty much went into grind mode that grade 9 summer, going to grade 10. And I think that's the transition where I said, I really want to play this in university and college. So I really took basketball seriously. I started training pretty much every day, 2-3 times a day. And by grade 10 to I did a grade 13 year, and they don't have grade 13 anymore. I was a 4-time city all-star. I had a couple schools looking at me locally and then a couple colleges away. But the thing with me is that I come from a family of 4 younger brothers, a single mom. It was very hard for her to put us all in like competitive sports, especially teams that would travel a lot, just because she couldn't physically do the driving and stuff like that, or it was just too expensive. So I had to actually figure out a way to expose myself to coaches because I knew I could play at the level, but I just needed a chance to be seen, and not being able to travel kind of hinders your exposure. So YouTube, I think, was just coming out at the time. This is 2007, 2006. I ended up taking a journalism class in high school, and that's when I started learning how to use kind of like Adobe Premiere, cameras and stuff like that. So I don't know what it was, but a light bulb kind of went off in my head where I'm like, I should just record my games and kind of see where that goes. So I started getting my brothers or some friends of mine, pay them $5 or whatever I can get from. I was doing babysitting and newspaper routes and random stuff at the time, and get them to record my games. And then we had to do a class project on anything we wanted to do. So I was like, why don't I kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, make a highlight tape and also use it for my class project. So I put together a tape, and when I was done, I burned 30-something DVDs with my game tape. I included a piece of paper with all my stats and accomplishments and everything that I had gotten throughout the 2-3 years of university basketball, and I sent it out. And from that, I started getting some offers, or at least some interest of coaches saying, come down for a workout or come down for a tryout. And that's all an athlete wants, just an opportunity to get into the door, right? And then once you're in, it's kind of now your hard work going to show up, right? So I was fortunate enough to go to Bishop's University, played there for 5 years. We won an RCQ championship my last year, made it to nationals, ranked 6th. We played Ottawa U, which till today, from what I remember, was the most viewed game online for any university basketball game ever. We took them to overtime. They were ranked, I think, 2nd or 3rd, and we were ranked 6th. It was a pretty crazy game. Till this day, I still think we should have won, but I mean, that's me. But from there, I was fortunate enough, again, I put another DVD together. I started getting contacted by a few agents. My dad is Lebanese, so what tends to happen in professional basketball is a lot of agents from these countries, like different countries, whether it's Germany or anywhere else, will try to always find people of that heritage outside of the country. So what happens is, depending on the country you're playing in, you're allowed a certain amount of imports. Your imports are usually your best players, they're your highest paid players. So they're always trying to find people. So for example, if you were from Germany, they're going to look for a German athlete to come in because now you take up a slot of a local player opposed to an import. But you are going to be better than the locals that are there. So what the best teams try to do, on paper, they have 3 imports, but they technically have like 8 or 9. So those teams tend to always be the best players. So I started getting contacted by a few Lebanese agents, but my dad, after he came to Canada in 85 or 84, never really went back. I never got my paperwork or anything like that done. So I actually went as an import for my first 6 months until I did my paperwork while I was there to become a local. So now I kind of free up another spot to get an import player to come in. So our team almost ended up having 4 imports opposed to having the regulation 3. So I mean, I played professionally for 3 years. While I was doing that, I started my first business, a media company, and it's called Next Level Media. And the whole purpose of that was to, again, give back to athletes because for me, I'm kind of living proof that the whole media stuff worked. I mean, I went through it from high school. It got me to university. I did it at university, got me to professional. And I started coming back home during the summer off season, playing, the summer league pickup and stuff like that. Then I started seeing a couple kids that I'm like, who's this kid? Like, why is he here? Why is he not playing at a university? Like a, 18, 19, 20-year-old kid. And I was like, why are you here? He's like, oh, nobody saw me, or, I never got exposure. Or some kids, obviously, some have bad marks. I mean, that's on them, right? So, but kind of something went off in my head. I'm like, there's probably thousands of other kids that were in my shoes that never really have the opportunity, whether it's financial or they come from a situation where they don't have control of, maybe a single parent just like I had or anything like that. So what I ended up doing through my company, the whole purpose of it was to help athletes get exposure by running a camp where instead of the kids going to find coaches, I'd bring the coaches in to see the kids. So I built it up where we would try to get 20 of the top kids in the area to come for like a 3-day camp. The 2 days was more skill work, and I'd bring in some of the coaches to speak about their programs or, what does it take to be a university athlete or a college athlete, to give these kids kind of an insight on what they still have to work on and what coaches are actually looking for. From that 2 days, we would cut down the list to 10 to get the top 10 All-Stars to come back on day 3. And on day 3, it'd be full out, like pretty much like an All-Star game where now they get to play. The coaches are all there. My first year, we had Rogers TV come out and film it. I had Red Bull be a sponsor, Muscle Milk. I had a different kind of companies that jumped on board to help the camp kind of take off. And over the last 3 years, this year, obviously, we couldn't due to COVID, but we've had, I think, 11 plus kids get to either university, college, or CJEP. So for me, I mean, it's all about, like you heard in that article there, like I'm trying to just give back and give kids opportunities that I wish I had when I was younger. And for me, the satisfaction of them getting to where they have to get to makes me happy. So I mean, that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Oh, that's a great story. One of the previous guests said that if you're solving a problem, then you have a business. And I thought it was so true. And throughout
Mm-hmm.
your story, it seems like that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm. No, that's actually, well, I never heard that before, but that's very true.
Jamil, so you mentioned the article, so I want to bring it up. So it was in Yahoo. It's called Global Basketball Trainer Coach Yourself is dedicated to our youth, and it's such a cool article. I told you off air, but it has so many great quotes. I just want to read, I guess, 2 of them, and then we'll talk
Mm-hmm.
about them. But the first one is that you said, "I just want these kids to have the opportunities and not let their financial situation hinder them from reaching their goals and dreams." So how can we achieve that?
I mean, it's about having programs in place, having facilities, having things where kids can expand what they have. So you're an athlete, for example, you want to get better at basketball, but now living in Canada, you could be out summers. What starts in June, finishes in, if we're lucky, September. So you don't have a lot of resources in terms of depending on if you live in other places where you can be outside maybe all year and practice and play. The weather here is kind of something that hinders us from training. So once it gets cold, we're forced to go inside. And now not having facilities where these kids can go and play and work on their skills, or even if you want to just mess around with your friend, you can't really do that now because of the limitations we have. But also these facilities that we do have, they have a bunch of programs running inside. If they do have an open gym, it's like you have an hour and then there's 3 nets for it, 60 kids running around. So to get better, it's so hard and so difficult. And it's almost about who to get kind of gym time here and there. You're driving around the city, you're finding all these little places that people don't know about if you're lucky. to try to get better, right? So I think a big thing is funding. It's having more facilities. It's just giving kids an opportunity. Like I think no matter what city you go to, you could probably find like 15 or 20 hockey arenas,
Right.
like without a doubt.
Right.
And some of them are struggling to even get ice rented out. So for me, it's like, why do we have so many arenas, but we have 2 or 3 basketball courts? Like if we're lucky, if a YMCA pops up in your area, like it comes down to all of that. So I think resources is something that we need to have more of for these kids to definitely take their skills to another level. And I mean, if we look at the NBA last year, the Raptors won. Being a basketball trainer myself, I saw a huge spike. Just, I mean, from emails from parents saying my kid was playing hockey or this or that and is really interested now to pick up basketball. Are you taking on more clients? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, so I saw a big growth it's in itself. And I mean, with that growth, basketball is so cheap to play. Hockey is expensive. Like it's very expensive, especially when you're in that growing stage where you're getting new pads every year and new skates and all that other stuff, right? So basketball is something anybody can pick up and literally do. You just need some pavement to dribble around. I mean, obviously, right? So I think it's something that the government and I mean, people like myself, other coaches, there's so many prep teams and all these things that are starting to form that I think facilities are a big demand right now. And some funding should be allocated to where these kids have a place to go and play whenever, not you have an hour or there's a drop in and it's $20 to get in. Like why is it so much money to get into to go play and shoot around, right? Like when I was younger, we used to have the YMCA and I still remember like it was yesterday. Every Saturday there was youth night and we would go from 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. Literally everybody. There was a big list. You'd sign up, come in with your team of 5 guys, and you guys would play. And it was $2 drop-in fee. And everybody would just show up. And it was like the best thing ever. And then they just stopped doing it. Literally just stopped doing it. And I think things like that need to come back because kids want to play sports. Kids are in the streets and stuff like that because there's nothing to do. When you're putting these programs and giving these incentives and other things for them to go and do, they will go there. So I think it's up to us as whether it's youth leaders, coaches, and stuff like that to implement or try to put in things to help athletes stay out of trouble. So, I mean, I think it comes down to that.
You bring up great points, and even the next quote that you said here, I'll just read it quickly. You said, "My vision is to one day have a facility where kids can play basketball at any time. In Canada, basketball is starting to grow, but facilities for kids to play are lacking tremendously. By having more places for these kids to play and compete, we will only improve the level of basketball in this country." And it's very true. And you mentioned the Raptors as well. Like I wasn't even a basketball fan before, Jamil, but when the Raptors started winning, the We North campaign started, and I spoke with Jack Armstrong about it. But that's when a lot of my interest peak in basketball.
Mm-hmm. No, it's crazy because I mean, like everyone always, when you refer to the Raptors, everyone always says we're winning, we are winning, or our team is up. Why do you think we go that route instead of saying the Raptors are winning or we always say we, like as a whole, and like you see it. Like I don't think any country rallied behind like their teams like we do. Like when the Raptors played, it was unreal. Like, it was actually unreal. Like to see those videos and all that stuff that happened. I mean, it's pretty unreal to see. And when a country backs you up, opposed to like you being from like a specific city, I don't think there's any greater kind of feeling than that. So
Sports is a great unifier. I even say it. I say we all the time. Oh, we're up
always,
10. Always.
exactly.
Yeah. So it's funny.
No, it's
So
true.
yeah. So transition to this. So what are the type of camps and programs that you run, and I guess how has the change been with COVID? Because obviously it's different.
No, for sure. So I mean, through my basketball company, I run pretty much summer camps all the time, and then throughout the year, I'll run offensive. I mean, I'll run different clinics. So I have an offensive skills clinic that I run 2 times a year, and then I run a fundamentals clinic as well. And those two clinics are more specific to what the title is. So I'll have the offensive one where we'll break down a lot of offensive things for kids to touch upon. Then I'll have the fundamentals one where we kind of break down everything, defense, screens, like just kind of giving them the whole kind of array of stuff. And then throughout the camps, they're usually full week camps. We go through everything from breaking down 3-on-3, 5-on-5, playing, skill work, conditioning, just to pretty much keep them in shape, because a lot of these kids play school basketball, club basketball, right, too. So that becomes kind of a big load for them as well. So these little clinics that I run as well kind of only kind of help enhance their skills. So that's the training side I have. Then with my media company is one that I spoke a little bit about earlier, the exposure camp that I have. So that's only ran once a year. And to kind of touch upon what you just said here, how's it the COVID affected it? I mean, I had to cancel my March break camp. I had to cancel this camp. Um, I also started a basketball team organization. It's going to be eventually, hopefully, last year called Team Believe. And I started with two teams, a U17 and U19 team. And this year was or last year, August, well, I guess this year together, was our inaugural season. And we started doing really, really well, picking up a lot of traction. We just had come off a tournament championship in February. We were in Toronto at the Mamba tournament. Things were going really well. We play in a Toronto league, which starts only in March. And it was supposed to start a week after COVID pretty much stopped everything. So I pretty much was in a slump in terms of what can we do, right? Because gyms were closed, everything was closed. Had to cancel tournaments. And for me, my biggest thing is my U19 team, because we have a lot of kids that were graduating, right? And for them, they're in a situation now where they're trying to get recruited. They're trying to find a school for the next year. Stopping play in March kind of puts you in a big gray area, because we had coaches that were interested in some of our players and stuff like that, but they wanted to see them play. So now it's like my word as a coach in terms of, you know, Vince can shoot, Vince can dribble, Vince can do all this stuff. So I'm trying to sell you now to a coach, opposed to previously a coach comes in or we have game footage to show and all that other stuff that can help with recruitment. So now as a basketball coach, that was probably one of the hardest things I had to go through, trying to get 9 guys into school. So I was emailing every university, every college, CJEPs, trying to show what we had. We had previously played, I think, 4 or 5 games previously. So a little bit of game footage, then my word. So that was really tough. And I think I won't be the only person in that area there. I mean, a lot of coaches probably went through the same thing. So I think that was very difficult. And then, I mean, now kids trying to go to university, what to do, right? I mean, it's hard. I think the sports industry probably took the biggest hit in terms of anything during COVID, right? I mean, if you're a restaurant, I think in the beginning was hard, but now you can still, deliver food, make food, all that other stuff. But with sports, it's like, what do we do?
Mhm.
What do we do?
If I knew 5 years ago about going to sport management, studying at Brock, and then and then now
Mhm.
being a pandemic,
Yeah.
I would have rethought it. But I love the degree that I got, and it was great. Job market, especially, I can only speak to that, but the job market right now is really tough. And even I think fans, fans in
Mhm.
stadiums, who knows? I miss the fans when I watch like the Raptors or
Yeah.
soccer or whatnot. I miss the fans, like the atmosphere. That's one of the best parts about sport in general. But
Yeah.
now we have, it's in soccer. I've noticed like the sound in the background, like the
Mhm.
soundtrack, and it's not the
Yeah.
same. Although it's great to
No,
have, it's not the same.
not at all.
It'll be
I
interesting to
mean,
see what the future is.
yeah, no, for sure. I don't know what's going to happen, but I mean, everything that's kind of in place right now, right, is just all precautions till we come with a vaccine, hopefully.
Right.
So, I mean, I think once we actually have something that is clinically proven that if you get COVID, you're going to be cured, life will be, I think, back to normal once we have that. I personally think, but I mean, who knows, right? So, right now, it's just kind of just stay cautious, and here are the steps to kind of just prevent things from expanding and getting worse. But I mean, to touch upon what you just said, though, like the whole fan thing too, like as an athlete and a player, I've realized in the NBA especially, like the fans add so much to the game that we are now seeing, right? That without them there are some players now actually who've actually excelled, because some people can't really play in front of fans. The whole mental aspect of the game too hinders your performance. Like when you're playing and you're getting booed or people are yelling at you, and all the pressure from people watching can sometimes actually hinder you as a player. Now with nobody there, like I don't know if you've been watching at all, like TJ Warren for the Pacers, he snapped. It wasn't even close. He snapped. And a guy like that was an okay player previously. So now it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen now come next year when now maybe you're trying to renew contracts with some guys. I'm going to give you a big extension, but now let's just say fans are back next season and now you can't play to that level anymore. It's like, what
I
are
didn't
we
think of
doing?
that. Yeah.
Yeah, what are we doing? So having no fans, I think, plays a benefit for some people. And some people actually like having that, all the eyes on them and stepping up when, it's 3 seconds left and I have the ball, opposed to being in an empty gym like you're at practice.
Right.
So I think mentally it's definitely messed around with a lot of athletes. Some for the better, some for the worse.
Mhm. I want to ask you, Jamil, how about your
Yeah.
business model? Because I know I asked this
Mhm.
to a previous guest, but
Yeah.
how did your business model change because of COVID? And what was
I
it
mean,
before as well?
so essentially, I mean, for me, it's like a personal trainer, right? So for example, if you went to Good Life, Good Life Training, I mean Good Life Fitness, and want to hire a personal trainer, he says, okay, sure, you hire Jack, and Jack is like, hey, Vince, we're going 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 o'clock, see you there. Pretty much the same thing. You want to come book a session with me? We book a session, we show up, we do the hour, or I have packages of 4, 8, and 12, so we can either do them weekly or however kind of fits your schedule. And then through that, I've also do my camps and my clinics and all that other stuff that I was doing nonstop. As soon as COVID hit, it literally couldn't do anything. So I had to figure out ways to kind of stay active within my business and also give back. That was my biggest thing. It's like, what can I do to still be engaging with my clients, but other people who may follow or try to find information that I post regularly. And the biggest thing that I realized as soon as COVID kind of hit is obviously everybody took to the internet. Zoom became bigger. All these things that everyone was doing virtually online, whether it's boot camps online or there's trainers all around the world. And I realized everybody was going that route. And everybody was pretty much offering the same thing because it was like just ball handling, ball handling, ball handling, ball handling. Like to me, I was like, I don't want to be just doing the same thing everyone is doing. What can I do to give back and still keep kids learning, right? So I started kind of my own little, I wouldn't call it a podcast. I mean, just kind of, it was an IG live series. And I was bringing on pro athletes, coaches, trainers, people who were all previous athletes before, and now what are they doing in their lives right now, right? So I wanted to kind of start that where kids would be able to tune in on Instagram and ask questions on the spot as well to these athletes that are currently playing or just finishing, and I wanted them to hear their stories on how did they go from being where they are to where they are now. That it wasn't easy. They didn't just spend 3 hours and end up being on Team Canada or go play Division 1 or play professionally, right? So it was great because I was able to bring on a different array of athletes. And the best thing about that is everyone has a different story. And that's what I wanted kids to understand is that you and I can both go to university, but you've had to like go through wall after wall after wall after wall. I could have just had an easy path. My dad played basketball. He knew Jack, who Jack knew Chris, and then I got my foot into the door that way. So I wanted them to know that just because they are struggling now doesn't mean that they're not going to make it. So I kind of started giving back in that sense, and um, that's kind of how I kind of shifted into the whole COVID uh, I guess, halt in terms of my work. And we weren't even able, I think, at one point, I think it's the same thing. It was all in Ontario going to outdoor courts or anything like that. Everything was even closed in that sense, too. So it's not up until, I think, June that I started doing my training again outside. But for a good 3-4 months, I was pretty much doing Instagram live videos to help hopefully show some athletes and some kids and youth that no matter what struggle you're going through right now, it'll make you stronger. There's going to be more struggles coming later. Even right now, if you feel like you have no struggles, everything is going great, you're gonna hit a wall. It's life. You're gonna hit a wall at some point, whether it's in 5 years or 10 years. How are you gonna get over it? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna just drop and throw in the towel, or are you just gonna kind of take it all in and get better? And I think every wall shows you who you actually are and how strong you can be, right? So I think those stories that the kids were hearing, I think played a big role in a lot of their lives right now, because I was getting messages daily from, whether, let's say, I had Marcus Banks, who played in the NBA for the Raptors a while back, and I had some kids message me saying like, "Oh my God, that was awesome! Thank you. I took down notes," and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." So like, and some kids would engage during the live and ask questions on the spot, and then we would try to leave about 10 minutes at the end where we would answer questions on the spot too. So it was pretty cool. I like that. I didn't think I was going to enjoy doing that. And like you said earlier, it is a lot of work. I mean, coming on every day and having a live, and then I'm like drinking water every 3 minutes. I'm like, my throat. I'm like, ugh. But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, Instagram Live is I haven't really gone down that road, but I do like it. I like
Mhm.
it's a bit different going live than like this is pre-recorded, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
we can edit it and change stuff if we want, but
Hmm.
Instagram Live, it is what it is, and
Exactly,
right, so you gotta be
exactly.
sharp.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think the part that I liked about it most was just the engagement part from people that are tuning in and watching, because they can kind of get an immediate response. I mean, that's if you want to answer their question. But I think I like that part, because we could be talking about something, and then maybe a kid asked something that was a really good point that we weren't really going to maybe talk about. So you really don't have a script when you're on Instagram Live, opposed to maybe, when you record something, you kind of have your questions preset. We'll start somewhere, and then all of a sudden now you're talking about this, then you're moving here and here. So that part was kind of cool, because it wasn't the same every call, every talk. It was kind of different. So I like that part of the live part.
Yeah, and conversation is constantly changing, constantly
Hmm.
evolving. Like a whole bunch of questions here, right? But if we talk
Yeah.
about something, I can move on to something else. Or we just keep talking about it.
Hmm.
That's what, and that's what I love about podcasting. You never know. You never know where it's gonna go.
Exactly. And I think
Yeah.
the biggest thing, like, I mean, to reiterate, I mean, the question that you had there in terms of business wise, by doing all of these podcasts and stuff too, my network expanded like crazy.
Mhm.
And I think that was the most uh, important, not important, I mean, crucial part for my business. I think in terms of elevating, um, the growth was phenomenal. And I think, not obviously, let's just say money wise or anything like that, but just in terms of meeting new people. And then once you go live and all that other stuff, I almost tap into people's networks as well, because their followers are now watching. And all of a sudden now you kind of are engaging between not just them, but who follows them and so forth. So it was pretty cool, because I could see the growth kind of per person almost, and like week to week I'm like, okay, now this person is engaging here, this person's engaging here, and now you're building relationships for later. This is not going to last. COVID's not going to last for a lifetime. So it's like, once I'm done now, I now have been speaking to someone that maybe lives in Calgary or the States. So now I'm building a relationship where maybe later on down the line, if I want to run a camp or I want to do something else, I now have a connection somewhere else that I never had before. So I think that part, networking, I mean, you're going to go through that right now. All the people you're talking to are now going to be part of your network. So like, it's pretty cool to build a relationship, even though we're virtual. I mean, if I ever come to Toronto, wherever you are, I'm like, hey, Vince, I'm coming down now. Like, it's almost like we're building, something that can grow into something later down the line, which I think is the most beneficial thing about these podcasts, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And even Jamil, I was looking at the analytics today for like all the different podcasts
Mhm.
platforms, and I saw countries like Germany and Ireland and Spain and Australia, and I'm like, oh my God, we're not just hitting Canada and the U.S., we're hitting global, which is
Everywhere. That's
really
amazing.
cool.
That's
And
amazing,
that's
man.
and oh, thank you. And it's similar, I guess, with your story as well, with doing these IG videos and being a global trainer.
Yeah, no, it's crazy where even just one person can take you, right? Like, you meet one person, or for example, now let's just say somebody hits you up from Germany, and next thing you know, you guys are talking, you build this relationship. Next thing you know, you might get a job offer, who knows where.
Right.
So that, I think too, is pretty cool, right? And like I was saying earlier, like, you could have used COVID to grow in different ways that you never thought you could do. Like for me, like even within my business too, I mean, I started learning about SEOs and trying to build my website and doing other things that I never thought about doing, because now online is so, it was like everybody's online. Like no one had anything to do. So I'm like, if I can capitalize on being online right now and grow that way, how many people can I actually reach now opposed to before? So I think just growth in itself during COVID, I think for my business, I grew in a different way, but I still grew in a positive way. I personally think so. I was kind of really happy with how things went. Obviously, I would love to be on the court and doing all that other stuff, but I mean, there's things that need to have been taken care of that I never thought was a necessity. So I kind of liked being in that route of thing. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Jamil, thank you for doing this. Can't thank you enough. Whoever's watching this YouTube video or listening to the podcast version, please, please, please read this article, your article, Jamil, because it's amazing.
Man, I thank you so much for having me. I appreciate everything you're doing too. I mean, a lot of these stories that people are coming on and speaking about, I think need to be heard. And there's no better way than to just get into conversation, because a lot of these kids look up to a lot of people, right? But they don't know what their stories are or how they got there. So I feel like by kind of speaking about where we've come from and how we got to where we are now, it is only going to help kids get ahead much faster, I think, and avoid the things we did to get to where we are too, right? So I mean, I appreciate all you're doing and the time that you're spending on doing this. So thank you.
Those are great words. Thank you. And just before I go, that's one of the goals I think for this, Jamil, is to to bring on people to express those stories. And everybody has a story, and that's why people ask me, why are the guests, why do they range a lot? And it's because everyone has a story, and every sector in the sport industry people can learn about, or every coach such as yourself can learn from. So that's why the guests range as much as they do. And in case anybody was wondering, a lot of people text me that, so maybe it's good to say it on air. But
No, man, variety is good, right? Because you never
yeah.
know where you're gonna end up, right? Like some kid could be watching right now and wants to be maybe a sportscaster or an analyst or anything like that, right? So
Mm.
it's cool to have variety because I can pick and choose what I want to watch too, right? So it's not like
Right.
only basketball or only hockey or only this or that, where your viewership kind of now also is just limited, right? So by having an
Right.
array of people, I think you're going to touch a lot more people as well too. So
Mhm.
it's good. Keep it up. Keep it up.
Thank you. And we're good. Bye, everybody.